David Foster Wallace knew that introverted writers were at a huge disadvantage, not just in marketing their work out to the world, but in the act of writing itself. And today we are going to hear a very lengthy quote from Wallace on why being shy is an advantage and why it is also a disadvantage and a persona that many writers double down on, even though it's not who they are and it's not helping them. And here on Right Conscious, we cover everything related to David Foster Wallace. In the playlist down below, you will find over 100 videos on Wallace's books, life, and writing philosophy. And so, because this is such a long quote, I will be breaking it up throughout the video, and let us now hop into it. Well, I think being shy basically means being self-absorbed to the extent that it makes it difficult to be around other people. For instance, if I'm hanging out with you, I can't even tell whether I like you or not because I'm too worried about whether you like me. It's stressful and unpleasant or whatever, and I have elements of that shyness in me. At the same time, I think that most people, and stop me if you disagree because I'm talking to somebody who's in the trade, somebody who's writing, has part of their motivation to sort of, I think, impress themselves and their consciousness on others. There's an unbelievable arrogance about even trying to write something, much less, expecting that someone else will pay money to read it. And so we'll continue the quote in a second, but this is really good information from Wallace. And what Wallace is not saying, and what I want to tell you guys, is that if you want to be a writer in 2025, where AI is going to make it impossible to hide your identity and be successful, and when publishing houses are doubling down on book talk books and just trying to hold on, then the only way you are going to get people to read your stuff is to say, this is what I've written about, and this is why it's important, and this is why you should read it. This is why you should spend time with my story and my ideas rather than anybody else's, or even yourself, or your family and friends, or making more money. That is the on-the-ground reality of what we are having to do as authors. We are just one of many exhibitionists, many arrogant people trying to impress others with their ideas. And so even if you don't like people, even if you feel shy when you have to go to the bank or at work or whatever, in actuality, if you want to play this game, then you have to step up and want to influence others. And being a writer is the most detached way of being a performer. The most direct way is someone sitting in front of you and performing something. But nonetheless, we are performers, and authors who forget that, and it happens all of the time, are the ones who, in the long run, all throughout time have been less successful and now are going to be authors who are going to not get any traction and end up bitter and complaining about how no one will read their work. And now that the book publishing industry has imploded and AI has come in, we are all playing a zero-sum game with each other. And all of us, including you, have an opportunity to have an unlimited amount of people read your stuff if you are willing to share it in the right way. And the reason that this is important and why actually the human connection is going to be big is that there is little to no chance that anyone is ever going to read your writing unless you get it in front of their face somehow, or they hear about it from word of mouth from your previous efforts. And so to want to do that means that you're going to have a certain type of motivation, because in time immemorial, in the golden age of writing, you could send your work out to some slush pile and maybe become a full-time author if you were lucky. But today, if you are not on the MFA factory line and have a professor job and an occasional splash of money from a grant or book publishing deal, then you are in the wasteland. Last year, there were only 70 new authors total across all fiction genres who got a deal for over $50,000. So imagine that. There are 70 people in the world, and this is including all the book talk authors, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, mystery. So I assume almost none of them are writing in the style that you are writing in. 70 people per year are breaking through, but you don't write a novel every single year. Usually it takes multiple years. And so now that we're in this wasteland, it's going to only be up to you. And unless you are planning only to write exploitative and entertaining fiction, then you can't be motivated by money and fame, because it's most likely just not going to happen. And so we get back down to the root of the problem. If you want to be a writer in the modern world, then the only thing left for you is to be a wake-up artist, is to be that guy, Himothy. Because if you want to just write cool stories like Hemingway or this or that, then you could probably get it done and continue to write, but no one will ever read your stuff. But if you want to be read, then you have to make people want to choose your work over every other option. And the only reason they will do that is because of a perceived reward. And what is that perceived reward? That they are going to be changed, that they are going to have their emotional heartstrings pulled, and that they are going to learn something. Because that's what makes it different than exploitative fiction. Because in a transformative novel, there are exploitative elements all throughout it. But at the core, it is changing who you are. And this lines up well with Wallace's quote. We are visionaries. We are personal development gurus. We have this arrogance that our way or our vision of reality is better, and we're willing to put it on the page and force you to read it. And I think the faster we accept that and double down on that, the easier everything becomes. Because once you accept that, then you're like, wait, if this is who I actually am, then this is who I need to become. And then you'll start making changes in your personal life to become this leader, this person, the person speaking to you right now, me. I was not this way even just a couple of years ago, but I realized the task at hand. I realized that if I was going to be one of the cogs in the wheel of a literary renaissance, or the person trying to get it going, then I would have to change and transform so many different aspects of myself. And so there you have it. That is our task at hand. And before we hop in to our next couple quotes from Wallace, this Saturday, I am starting my Infinite Jest Book Club version number 2. We are meeting every single weekend, not every single weekend, once a month on Saturdays until October. And my job is to help you finish David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. I have an Infinite Jest course that is halfway done and will be completed by the time we finish this course, to help break down everything that's going on so that you can actually understand the novel. Because most people who read the novel for the first time understand a small portion of it. But my goal with the book club and the course is to help you get over 50-60% of it, which should make it a more transformative experience. And for those who don't have money and don't want to pay, I have free content on Substack, dozens of posts, and I also, down in the link below, have a guide to over 300 of David Foster Wallace's favorite books. This is the most comprehensive resource on David Foster Wallace online. And below that, I have a free 3-hour guide on how to get readers and employ actual strategies to grow your audience as a writer. All of that is free. And I also have this paid offering on my Substack. And so if you guys are interested, that is cool. But if not, let us hop back to the quote. Exhibitionists who aren't shy end up being performers, end up plying their trade in the direct presence of other people. And exhibitionists who are shy find various other ways to do it. I would imagine that maybe film directors, it's the same way. Although film directors have to deal very closely with a whole team of other people as they are making a movie. So partly though, I am talking out of my ass, because what I'm talking about is me, and maybe 5 or 6 other writers I know real well. There's that John Updike quote, "Shyness and a savage desire to hold another's soul in thrall." The shyness feeds into some of the stuff that you really need as a fiction writer. Like, part of the shyness for me is, it's very easy for me to play this game of, what do you want? What will the effect of this be on you? You know, it's this kind of mental chess, which in personal intercourse makes things very difficult. But in writing, when I think a lot of what you are doing, there are very few innocent sentences in writing. You've got to know not just how it looks and how it sounds to you, but you've got to be able to plausibly to project what an alien consciousness will make of it. There's a kind of split consciousness that I think makes it difficult to deal with people in the real world for a writer, but that actually comes in handy. And so what Wallace here is actually what Wallace here is talking about is the classic overthinking that writers do. And so many of us, I think, including you, are overthinkers. This is what's funny about being a high school teacher. So a couple months ago, I remember I had this student and he had asked this girl out on a date or something, or gotten her phone number, and he was taking her on this date. And this dude was thinking of everything, like, should I open the door? Should I not open the door? Should I get her this? Should we go here? What if this happens? And I remember feeling the same way. I remember like thinking of like a million different things that could go wrong in every single scenario. Just like before I would send a text message that wasn't even important. Like, well, this, and I would just sit and think and overthink and give myself insomnia. And I would be like trying to control all these personal interactions because I was like actually kind of an overthinking introvert. And so what's funny though, is that when you play these games in your head, you're actually thinking of how someone else is going to react. And you create these narratives. Okay, well, if they do this, then this is going to happen. And then you do it again with a different situation. If I do this, then this could happen. But what's great about this is that this is all you do while you're writing. So you're sitting down and you're writing a story, let's say, and then you have this situation with this character, this made up person, this person who is not there with you. And a lot of the time when we're overthinking, it's about people who we don't exactly know how they're going to react, or that we don't trust them or something like that. Like if it's with somebody, back in the day, if it was like my sister, I'd be like, I know if I do this, that she'll do this. It's not a big deal. And so the same is true with every character situation. You can play, as Wallace calls it, this mental chess. And when you do, you can actually find, with the same practice from your real life, these insane solutions, these insane outcomes, these insane reactions. And that's what makes it great. What sucks about overthinking is that I would come up with these elaborate plans. I would sit and think, I remember I was at this track meet once, and there was this beautiful girl walked up to me. She's like, I like that you're wearing skinny jeans. And she gave me her phone number. And we started texting or something. And I was like, dude, this girl is way out of my league. What is she thinking? And we eventually set up this date at some ice cream shop on her side of town. And so, okay, I'm ready to go. I overthought everything, I was ready. Then that day, I'm going to like my second period class, which was band. I used to play the trumpet, speaking of nerds. And my teacher's like, all right, guys, are we ready to go? We're leaving in an hour. I'm like, leaving? He's like, yeah, we have a performance today at some retirement home. And I'm like, what? And this dude was a hard ass. It was like going to be mandatory. And I was like, there's nothing I could do. They would come get me. Like I couldn't leave the bus. And so I didn't even have my outfit or some of the things I needed. So I got permission from the school to go drive home really fast. And then while I was at home, I left my phone there. And so then when I get back to school, I'm like, okay, this won't be a big deal. It's 11 o'clock. We're supposed to meet at like 6 o'clock. Like, I'll give her some word. But then suddenly I'm on this bus and I'm looking, I'm like, for my phone to listen to some music. I'm like, where the hell's my phone? I'm like, oh no, I don't know this girl's number by heart. I don't know anything else. And so, yeah, all the outcomes I imagined wasn't me blowing her off and not going out with her. And I'm sure you guys have had very similar things happen. But as a writer, let's say that wasn't really a crazy event in my life, but I could self-imagine a million different variations on that event. And I love Wallace's joke. In physical, in sex, it makes things very difficult. But what Wallace is also saying here, underhandedly, once again, is that as you are writing, yes, you have to play this game, but then you also have to think how other people are going to react to it. You put the sentence on the page, and then what he's saying is you think of the reader. You think of, okay, well, if I do this, how are they going to react? Wallace isn't sitting here and saying, oh, just be some narcissist, do art for art's sake. Wallace, McCarthy, all these people, when they sit down and write, the entire time in revision, they're not thinking of themselves and what they want their story to be. They have this image, they have their story. I'm sure they want it to be a certain way. They're thinking of how the reader is going to react to it. That's called trying to transform someone. That's called trying to seduce or hypnotize somebody. And that's one of the big mentality shifts that we have to make as a community that I am trying to push. That you just don't write this thing how you want to write it and don't think about anyone else or think about just your ideal reader. And then suddenly you're just belting out these masterpieces. It's a co-creative relationship with this, group of readers that you have to imagine in your head. And one of the better ways to understand how to do that, obviously, is to be a reader yourself, but also understand people and understand the world and understand psychology. And you can't get that a lot of the time from being an introvert and playing on the sidelines. You have to be in real life to be able to do that. You can, there are plenty of people online right now who are nerds and they can write really good sentences. They can recreate these stylized pieces of whatever. But when I look at many of the novels behind me, they aren't these stylistic masterpieces. Many times they are very, very simple. And so that's what we are being called to do as introverts, as shy people. I've really flipped myself from an introvert to an extrovert. I used to hit every single time on the Myers-Briggs test, INFP, my entire life until like 3 or 4 years ago, where I think because of this channel and the changes I made to my personality, I went to E. And so hopefully this gives you guys some good food for thought and hopefully reinforces some of the themes of this channel of how to approach transformative literature. And by doing this, I think that you will be happier. By doing it in this way, you are working with people, working with the audience instead of just being this lone ranger. And even if at the end of the day, you don't talk to anyone or you still send it to the slush pile and you make it big, you're going to be connected to something bigger, and that will pay off in the long run, not just with your own success, but the success of others who have awakened because of your writing. And so thank you guys for being here. Of course, check out some of the options, free and paid, that I told you guys about. Hopefully I see some of you guys on Saturday for the Infinite Jest Book Club call. It is not too late to start. It never is. And I will see you guys very soon in the next video.